Apparently, we're going. There it is. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Look at that. We got Graham Battison in here. Our sponsor, Puget Sound Pythons, Dustin Gran, Ben Frame, Thomas Irvin, Brad
So
Clark, the
I, I
usual suspects.
I saw the usual suspects, and I went to go comment, but I can't. And I realized that because I never type on this thing because let's face it, I can't multitask to save my life. But I go to say hello because I actually have time or the mindset to do it, and I physically can't because I'm not logged in.
I just realized no one can probably hear me because my mic's all the way across the table.
No, we heard you.
Hen Dog's here.
Now you're very loud. I love it.
That's, yeah. This is episode 65.
65.
Stephen Poole's here. Xavier Walker. All that good stuff. So, yeah. Like I said, this show's brought to you by Puget Sound Pythons. Billy Jenkins said, as you the kids say, we are live. Sean's here. What's up, Sean? Brandon Valentine said, check your Instagram messages when you get a chance.
Yeah, I just sat down to set this up, and I saw I've got a bunch of messages. So let me just do that now while we're in the communications. What's funny is every time we do, Puget Sound Pythons, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you guys remember, but if you ever listen to Sirius XM, there's a channel called Lithium that does all 90s alternative and grungy shit, which is right up my alley. And there was this whole thing that was the calm, soothing sounds of the Puget Sound. And I wanted to get that audio clip and redo it or re-record it with Puget Sound Python. So I may still do that. I gotta find it.
Brandon said it's very cringe, so forewarning.
All right, there he is.
And before we jump into it, I am smoking the Perdomo ESV Maduro. This is a Churchill, so everyone can see it. And this is in the latest sampler for the month. So what you can expect from this one compared to last week's, which was the Perdomo 20th anniversary 6548. This one's going to be a lot richer. It's going to be fuller. I have a bit more going on. We have these, and it also comes in a Connecticut. I prefer the Connecticut between the two, but I figured since that pack had a handful of Connecticut's, and 3 of them were Connecticut's out of the 5. Let's throw some Maduros in there. So there was this one, and there was the Oliva Serie V Torpedo. So I'm going to smoke this. I should have. Oh, look at that. Thomas said that's about what he's about to light up. I wanted to stop and get some dark chocolate or something and talk about sort of palate cleansing and stuff. If you really want to get into a cigar and sort of explore all the flavors and stuff. Hey, Xavier said he's smoking his first cigar tonight. What is it? So if you've ever done an Ashton event at any of your local shops, if they do events and if they have Ashton, they do this sort of tasting thing where you pay for a ticket, but you get 2 or 3 cigars. They usually bring a liquor. I think it's usually Zaya. They may have changed it up since, which is an aged rum. It's not a spiced rum. It's not like Captain Morgan. It's not a dark rum like the Kraken. And then they bring dark chocolate. They bring almond, just regular raw almonds, unsalted. And the whole point of that is, San Cristobal. Those are really good. I like a lot of the San Cristobal stuff. So you eat the almonds, that dries your mouth out, and then you eat the dark chocolate that cleanses your palate, similar to what dark coffee or black coffee will do. And then you'll smoke. And if you have both the cigars they give you lit up at the same time, you get a good idea of sort of the differences between the Oscuro and the Maduro, or the the Mi Amor and the Mi Amor Reserva, which the difference is one's an Oscuro, one's a San Andreas Maduro. So it's pretty cool to get to see and taste the differences. I highly recommend people give it a shot. So any dark chocolate, the little Dove dark chocolates that come wrapped individually, eat one of those, smoke a cigar, and you'll be amazed at how many more flavors you're getting out of it. And then there's the importance of retrohaling. So you're using all of your taste buds, not just the oral ones, but also your nasal. And that takes practice, and a lot of people are kind of scared to do it, but you do get a lot more out of the cigars that way. So
you may cough once or twice because it's kind of a weird thing. Like you have to think about doing it probably the first 1 or 2 times you do it, but it really does change everything. And just for the record, I know Justin's not paying attention, but tonight I am smoking the Warped 88. In my opinion, it is becoming a timeless classic.
those are good. Those were in one of the samplers, I think.
Yeah,
like a month or 2 ago.
I don't know why it's not. It's got one of my favorite bands of any cigar because it doesn't say Warped on it. It just says 1988. So let me see if I can get it to actually focus. It's a little washed out, but hold on. So like there's the 1988, and then.
Which that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because people come in very confused. They're like, it had a bunch of numbers on it. I don't like. Frankly, our clientele is older, and so they want things that stand out, like this. And I make a joke all the time about smoking cigars that look like a freaking Pokemon card. But for the older folks, this kind of stuff helps, even though half the time they're like, I smoked a cigar last week. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Basically, like, do you know what it might have been? Is the question they're pretty much asking without asking it.
Yeah.
It's like, what color was it?
It's funny you bring up like foil bands and the overall appearance and aesthetics of a cigar because I actually had Rob Calloway messaged me this afternoon saying, hey, I'm going to get my first cigar tonight. I've been looking at, I think he was saying Gurkha and Roma because Justin and I always talk about Gurkhas and Romas. And it was difficult because like not knowing Rob outside of reptiles, like I don't know what kind of guy he is. You know what I mean? I don't know what kind of taste he may have. So like I told him to go to Drew Estate just because it's a cornucopia of catalog. They literally have everything. Everybody. Yeah. So I basically told him, I was like, listen, if you want to try a flavored something just to get the ball rolling, go for it. I said, but don't get an acid. Go for like a Java or something if you like coffee, and kind of roll with that. And then to be honest, I told him just to get a normal Montecristo Habano. It doesn't have to be Cuban per se, but just a normal Montecristo that's moderate. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if he's read it yet because he's in the UK and I'm sure it's past his bedtime. Yeah, he hasn't read it yet. Like I said, he's in the UK. It's past his bedtime, but I'm eager to see what he says tomorrow and kind of go from there. Hopefully he listens to this too. So, but yeah, just going back to those foil bands, the Pokemon card.
Sorry, Brad.
Like for example, I like most Gurkhas. Don't get me wrong. There's a bunch of Gurkhas that are kind of meh, but like the Ghost, like that has one of the coolest bands ever, and it's just not good. It's just not a good smoke.
It's just like I noticed a trend. Like there's some companies that put a lot of resources and work into the packaging of the cigar and less on the product, and then you have guys like Roma, where everything's very minimal. They do that because they prefer to put more emphasis and work into the actual product itself, which is fine. I mean, Gurkha's like, that's one of the biggest brands. Like they have a ton of stuff. I have people ask for Gurkha all the time. There's a couple that I like, but out of their portfolio. But in my opinion, they're like a mile wide and an inch deep. Portfolio is just so big that I still see some online for sale, like Gurkhas that I didn't even know existed. And it's because it's like a certain website that's their exclusive release. And I don't know. It's just there's some companies where they just have too many SKUs. There's like literally too many cigars to pick from. Rocky's another good example of that. Like I always see a Rocky that I've never seen before. And it's like, when does it end? They have like their core line, and then there's a bunch of other iterations, and just it gets out of hand.
Yeah.
This is good. Like I said, I like the Connecticut a little more, but still solid. And yeah.
I actually, I wanted to be a little. I was in a coffee mood, and I've been drinking a lot of coffee lately. I don't know, like I always drink a lot of coffee, but more than usual, I should say. And when I grabbed this Warped, I was like, you know what? I have a couple different kinds of creamers, just because I'm that guy. And Hen Dog, was insistent that the Cinnamon Toast Crunch Coffee Mate or whatever brand it was to die for. So I got it. And I won't lie, it's pretty fucking awesome.
I heard someone doing that like rum chata stuff mixed with
or like coquito or whatever,
like mixed with Bailey's or something like that. There's some sort of liquor that like you mix that rum chata with, and it's stupid good.
Yeah, but just like the cinnamon in the creamer and the cigar is really going.
Yeah,
pretty good.
I actually my last sale tonight when I was at the shop before I closed, I had a guy come in. He was drinking tequila, which tequila is not an easy liquor to pair cigars with, or I guess really anything for that matter.
Yeah.
But that is what I gave him because it does have that sort of slight grassiness and that slight bitterness to it that would go hand in hand with a tequila well. And that's one of the few cigars that I pick when people are planning on drinking tequila straight, because it's not something you want to drink a Maduro with. That's just not going to work. They're opposing flavors. But something like that that's just a little kind of that tartness, that sharpness to it, just enough.
Yeah.
Go well. So
and less oil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a legitimate medium, less oil. And it's funny you mentioned like tequila, and like I can't imagine. Let me rephrase that. I know that if I'm not a tequila guy, but like let's say you're enjoying like a legitimately nice, well-crafted sipping tequila or just drinking tequila. You're not making a mixed cocktail. I feel like most cigars would be extremely I'm gonna use the word controversial, but like clashing. You know what I mean? You're almost destroying one, and then you don't get to enjoy the other. So
that actually sounds good. Rum chata, limoncello, and lemon cake equals lemon cake. And then Thomas said Cuban coffee goes really well with cigars. Yes, it does. And that's like all we drink here is Cafe Bustelo because it's super cheap and it's really good. Because I usually, if I'm drinking coffee, it's black. To me, that is the best thing to pair with cigars is just black coffee. I don't know. I would like to go to the local coffee shop and get some better stuff, change it up a little bit, just because we've been drinking that Cafe Bustelo for months now, and it's every now and then you need to, put a little extra money into that.
Yep, you got to come down to me, and we'll have Hen Dog take us to Havana Harry's. And we'll get real cafecito, real coquito.
But Bill asked, as far as like the big brands, he said, is that something maybe because they're sold regionally or something? And then he said, or would a big cigar store have an entire series of for a brand? See, that one's kind of tough, especially the second one, because you have to think about it. Cigars, it's very much dependent on, you have to kind of pick and choose your battles because you're sort of rolling the dice on not only just a line, but the different sizes in that same line. So you look at someone like a company like Southern Draw, where they have a really good portfolio, but they do so many sizes in each line that it's insane. And so it's like, do you bring all of them in and maybe sell a couple of, like, maybe only 2 of the 5 are popular, and so then you're stuck with the rest? Or do you only bring in 2 that are more like customers overall tend to like? Robustos is probably the most popular cigar size in cigars, in like industry wise. So you just bring in Robustos and Toros, or the Gordos, which is like a 6x60, and then you have Lanceros, which like the hardcore cigar nerds love Lanceros. So it's like, do you bring in a box of those? So it's a gamble, because if you don't sell them, you're kind of stuck with them in a sense. I mean, it's not like they go bad; they do get better over time, but you have to really be careful because you're sort of juggling. Like there's a equilibrium where they cross, of getting them sold in a semi quickly fashion to where you're not, like, the longer they sit, they do lose money over time because it's just inventory and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Some shops are like my shop that I work at. We're a big Drew Estate account. for obvious reasons. We have Liga Privada. Like, you don't just get Liga Privada just because you have Drew Estate. You have to sell a certain amount of Drew Estate to carry that. We're a big Perdomo account. We sell a ton of Perdomo. That's just popular. A lot of Oliva. And I think, you're going to see that. There's some like Rocky lounges. There's Rocky Patel lounges. There's Monte Cristo lounges. Your shop used to be a Monte Cristo lounge, wasn't it?
No. It is. It was a mom and pop joint, and they sold out to Monte Cristo. And I don't know how they're doing now because of COVID, and I haven't been there in many moons. But it is heavily Monte Cristo. But they know that they can't just be Monte Cristo. Like, they have to have other companies. And I think when the new regime came in, because they transitioned to Monte Cristo, and then they were that for a few years, and then they went under new management and staff left and people went on to other things. They cut back, they cut back on a lot of boutique brands. Like, they got rid of Romacraft, you know what I mean? But at the same time, they brought in smaller stuff like Jericho Hill. So, I don't think that's a fair, trade-off.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're still getting a good branded product.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, just going back to like the Drew Estate stuff, there's almost too much. And I think I've asked you this before, but like, you being the doing orderings for the shop and stuff, of the bigger brands, is there, for lack of a better word, opening orders?
Like stuff that's on back order?
No. Like, do you have to buy so much in order to get, the more desirable product? Like, do they do that? And I'm not talking about like getting Liga, you know what I mean?
Talking about like the H99s recently.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That we blew through. They were like, so that one's tough. Obviously, when someone like Drew Estate has a new cigar that they're dropping, especially if it's a Liga, everyone in the States is going to lose their mind over it, because Liga Privada has firmly established itself as one of the top lines of cigars, one of the most popular lines of premium cigars of all time. And so when you announce that you're having a new release, and you haven't had a new release in that line in I don't know how long, very long time. I want to say it's about probably at least 10 years, maybe even longer than that. People like the hype thing is very real. And so like these H99s, they've been teasing them for years, saying, advertising them like they're coming. And then for whatever reason, I think originally they planned on doing like a lottery system for the shops that are, Drew Estate accounts, like Drew Estate lounges. And I think maybe they scrapped that idea because I think it pissed off a lot of people or something. I don't know. But then it ended up, we had a digital event. We had the actual physical event at the shop Saturday night. But we had 2 boxes of H99s come in. There was a whopping 48 of them total between the 2 boxes. Gone.
What they sell for?
Those were slightly more expensive than the other ones, and they were $17.95 or $18.50, I think.
Oh man, I was gonna say I was expecting to be like $30.
No.
Oh, because shit, I would honestly, I'd pay $30 for that just to get it through,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we sold through those 2 boxes in a heartbeat. And who knows when we'll get more in? It's just one of those things. But it's one of those businesses, and that's where I differ from the owner. Is like, I'm all about like, sell it, get it out there, get it going.
Yeah.
And he likes to, especially when it comes to limited stuff like that, he likes to kind of limit people a little bit more. And obviously, if we just get something in, some guy rolls in and wants to buy the box, like literally as I'm putting it on the shelf, I'm probably gonna be like, look. We only have so many of these. We don't know when to get them back in. So I guess it's a little different. But like, if it's like there's been times where we've had to sort of ration out the Andalusian Bulls.
Really?
Because those got Cigar of the Year back in 2017, I think it was. And they've struggled to keep up with the demand on those still.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there was a point where like we could not get them in. And so anytime we did get a box or two, we had to ration them out. And it would be like, there would be a limit on them because dudes will come in and literally buy a whole box, like a box of 10. And like I said, for me, it's kind of like, we're here to sell cigars. I'm not into rationing things out, but sometimes it is warranted, and I get it. So,
yeah, personally, like I understand your thought on that, but on something like the H99, you'd have to ration out, because think about the clientele that you're gonna, for lack of a better word, piss off, because they were expecting to possibly get one And then, if, God forbid, they find out that one guy came in and bought them all. Not only are they going to hate that guy, but they're going to be kind of disappointed in us to say, because we didn't, I don't want to say ration them out, but like I know for those of you who don't know, I'm in the firearms industry, and like there are certain companies that I don't buy from because if they come out with, if they have 10, let's say they have 10 guns in their product catalog, right? But 2 of them are highly sought after. I have to spend $100,000
on all the other stuff that you don't
on all
want.
the other crap that's probably going to sit there just so I can get 1 or 2 of those desired models. So it's funny, Steve. I was actually going to tell you that. I was going to say we have a couple questions in the column over there. Me personally, my favorite bourbon.
What's your favorite bourbon to drink with a cigar for people that are listening to this post live? Sorry.
Oh my God, now I can't remember it. The double oaked. Who the hell makes that? Grand Reserve double oaked. I like that with a Padron 64. That's
Woodford?
Woodford. I'm sorry. That's what it's. Yeah, it's Woodford. It's Woodford Grand Reserve double oaked. And,
Woodford was going to be my pick too. That's one bourbon that I was just every time, man. It's just good.
Yeah,
it's not crazy expensive. It's delicious, and I'm not like I was never a big drinker before, but I'm even less of a drinker now, just out of personal preference. But Woodford, that's good stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the Woodford Reserve double oaked with a Padron 64, and then another one that I'm a big fan of, and you'd expect them to clash because of the color differential, but they really do blend well. Is I like an Angel's Envy with the Tabernacle, a Tabernacle and a Toro with an Angel's Envy neat.
They're both a little intense.
Yeah,
both kind of upfront.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And that's I've talked about it in a previous episode where we kind of went in depth on pairings, but my rule is there are no rules. Phil's pairing of Angel Envy with a Tabernacle will be great to him, to somebody else, to me, to Jeff, to Thomas. They may not be into it.
Yeah.
They may like Captain Morgan with something super spicy, some sort of Habano that's just a pepper bomb, but
yeah,
it's whatever works for you. I mean, I typically, like, the loose sort of guideline I tend to follow is try to match the color of the liquor with the color of the cigar. Obviously, you don't want a really light Scotch paired with a super dark Maduro.
Yeah,
I mean, it may work, but for the most part, I try to keep them similar. So that's just my take. And then Brandon Valentine asked, I don't know much about cigars, but how many cigars come in and out per month, week, etc. in your shop or in general, would you say? I mean, that's tough. Like today, I sold probably 2 or 3 boxes at least. It's probably more. That's probably a loose estimation. But even then, like, we had that cigar event Saturday night, and we sold probably 10 plus boxes, and I mean that's a minimum of 20 cigars. So it's a lot. I mean, in a given week, I'd say on a slow week, a couple hundred easy. Like, I'm talking like no less than 500. On a busy week, I mean, you'd be looking at easily probably over 1,000. It depends. Time of year, like, we're a little seasonal tourist wise. So in the summer, it's obviously a little more hopping than it is right now. So a lot. And then Thomas said, here's an important question. This one's going to be tough. He said, Liga number 9 or T52 versus the Tabernacle versus Neanderthals versus Mike Rita Tricky Tracas.
Well, how are you breaking that up? Are you just picking one of the? I think
it's just a free for all.
Yeah, but is it like number 9 over 52? Is it Tabernacle over Neanderthal?
No, it's just versus.
Oh, you can't do that, man, because all of those are phenomenal smokes.
Neanderthal.
I'm going to go number 9, top of the list. That's my go-to. That's my favorite stick, hands down. It's tough because I don't consider the Tabernacle and the Neanderthal like.
Well, if we're talking about, I guess the way you would have to break it down, since the Tricky Traca is a Habano, if I'm not mistaken, you'd have to compare that to the T52. If you're talking about the number 9, you'd have to compare that to the Tabernacle, and then the Romacraft would stand out on its own because that's a San Andreas Maduro. So it's kind of apples to oranges to pears in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
Neanderthal, I don't That's my all-time favorite smoke, bar none.
Yeah, I gotta go number 9, man. Number 9 in a Toro. That's my go-to.
Tabernacles, I'm honestly not that crazy about. They don't really do much for me.
Oh, man, I love that Tabernacle. It's so oily. It's great.
I've tried them a handful of times, man. I don't. They're too sharp for me. It's just a little too. And when I say when I say sharp, think about like cheeses. Like you have sharp cheddar compared to like a mild cheddar. Right. It has that sort of like bitterness, I guess. I don't know what the word is, but Tabernacle has that sharpness to it, and I've tried it multiple times, and it's not my jam.
I actually, as much as I love Neanderthals, like the one that you gave me what was the one that was most recent in the sampler from January? Which one was that?
I think that was a Intemperance.
It was not an Intemperance.
That was probably Aquitaine, the Corona.
Aquitaine, yeah.
That
caught me off guard because I was expecting it to be Neanderthal, and I wasn't looking at the band. I was just like, Roma. And that was really, really good, man.
Like when you get sweet tea and you thought you bought sweet tea, but it was Coke. If you go to like McDonald's or something, and then your brain is already prepped and ready for Coke, but you take a sip and it's tea, and you're like, your brain has that like slight stroke of confusion.
Another great pairing just off the top of my head that I didn't think would go really well, and again, everyone's different, feel free to try it, but the Monte Cristo number 2 pre-midday, I believe it. I don't know if I'm going to butcher that, but the Monte Cristo number 2 with oh my god, the black, now I can't remember, a Kraken. That was just like, what do you got on the shelf kind of night, and that worked so well because the Monte Cristo number 2 is just butter, and then that Kraken had just that good sweetness to it. It's jet black. That was a good pairing for me. A weird pairing.
But once again, it worked. That wouldn't have been the two things that I would have put together, but it works. And then Jeff said, how about pairing with wine? Wine's another hard one. Again, like red wines are probably easier to pair than Chardonnays and white wines. It can be done. It's just one of those things where you kind of have to navigate. Like if you do like a Pinot Grigio, that's probably going to be a little sweet to be pairing with something like a Charter Oak or a Perdomo Lot 23 Connecticut, or but it can be done with like red wines. The handful that I've had of like dark Cabernets and stuff, and Merlot, not Merlots, but Pinot Noirs, didn't go very well with the cigars that I smoked, and I've tried a couple different ones with it, trying to find something that works, and it just doesn't do it. But beer, I mean, we can talk about beer real quick. One of my favorite beers to pair with a super dark cigar, Sierra Nevada Narwhal. It's an imperial stout that comes out once a year. That's a great beer. Once again, if you're going to do like an IPA, you're going to go with something that kind of has that same sort of slight bitterness and sharpness to it, like I was talking about, like that 1988. And then everything else, you just gotta. There's some coffee stouts that go really well with cigars. You know, it just. I don't know. Just gotta take a leap of faith.
Yeah, I started drinking a couple sours. That I'm not like an IPA guy at all, but I had a couple buddies that are craft beer fanatics, and Brandon Valentine says, "How about pairing with the snake?" The sours, man. Like, I want to experiment with more sours, but I don't know where to even think on the tobacco level. You know what I mean? Like, do I just start with Connecticut and just kind of see where it goes? You know, like I just don't know what's gonna clash because sour is such a unique taste, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I think IPA is kind of like tequila. That's just a hard one to pair with because it's just so, like, IPAs are just, most of them, at least in my opinion, which I'm not an IPA guy either, most of them are just very overpowering. And the whole point of a pairing is to have the things complement each other, not one overpower the other. You know,
right.
It's not a midget wrestling match.
Yeah, exactly.
But I did have some things that I thought of last night / today to cover. And the first one I actually was thinking about in the think tank, aka my shower, last night, because I was like, "What are me and Phil going to talk about? How are we going to follow up last week and all the awesome things we covered?"
Awesome things.
And I was like, I've been thinking about it a lot. Like, if there was any country in the world that currently does not export wildlife for the pet trade, what would it be? And I have multiple answers now. After talking to Henry a little bit this morning, he kind of I don't know if he talked to you, he talked to me.
He got to you. I knew he would.
Yeah.
He's so anxious. I love it. So do we tell Henry's first? Because I feel like Henry was a little, I don't want to say enamored, but I feel like Henry was a little surprised because I guessed his answer so rapidly. And I said, Hen Dog, we talk every single day. Like, if I couldn't guess your answer, then what kind of friend would I be? So Hen Dog's immediate response is India. And I'm pretty sure, and somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's over 200 species of snakes in just India.
Yeah, but you think about all the boiga species that are in India that we will never see in the hobby. And as soon as he said India, I was like, he's right. Like, there's a very large chunk of the entire boiga genus is in India, and we'll never see him.
Yeah.
Well, I won't say never, but probably in my lifetime or our lifetime, we won't.
Yeah. Yeah. So my immediate answer, just blah, word vomit, is Australia.
I knew it. See, mine is not.
But as much as I would love Australia, Israel would be a fantastic export.
Because you want the Ruffles Vipers.
I want the Vipers. There's all the different species of Vipera. I want Walternesia because I need a cobra that doesn't hood. All the bugs, the arthropods, the arachnids, all that stuff. Breathtakingly. The frogs, the toads endemic to the Near East are just phenomenal species that we just don't even know exist because nobody brings anything. You can't. It's all closed. So, yeah. So what's yours?
Well, so Hen Dog brought up a good point with India. Mm-hmm. And like, first of all, the biggest issue is trying to remember what countries are completely closed down.
Right.
Because I know there's a lot in Africa.
Yeah. But the good thing about Africa is a lot of the species, except for regional phenotypes, a lot of the species are very broad in terms of their range. I'm pretty sure puff adders are the most widely distributed species on the planet because it literally is the entire African continent, shy of the middle Sahara. But like,
true.
Again, there's stuff out of Botswana and some of the smaller countries in West Africa that are almost, we get stuff out of Benin, but some of it comes out of Liberia, but Liberia is closed, It's like Sierra Leone. There are gigantic emperor scorpions that come out of Sierra Leone that would absolutely swamp your best specimen of Heterometra swammerdami. But again, we don't know it because we never get them.
And going back real quick, Bill asked, are these pairings that I've tried through the course of my job or learned as accepted industry type of info? These are ones that I have personally tried, and that's just my thought process behind it. There's not a whole lot of industry type info when it comes to pairings. There's just some that people have found and are universally accepted as good pairings. Honestly, I don't know what they are. So
yeah, I think that Justin's probably, I don't want to speak for him, but I feel like Justin and I share the same concept of you can watch a million different videos on cigar stuff on YouTube and the internet, and they could give you great pairing ideas, but everyone's tongue is different.
Everyone's palate's different.
And like what may be amazing to Justin is heinous to me. Who knows?
I mean, it's the T52 versus the number 9 thing. I'm a T52 guy.
Exactly.
I used to be a number 9 guy, and then over time, my taste changed, my palate changed, and I just prefer my cigars be more complex and just be a little bit more colorful and have more going on. Number 9s are good. I love them. But if I have a choice, it's going to be a T52 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Bill also said Galapagos would be his pick. He wants marine iguanas. Dustin asked, is Mexico closed? A lot of stuff I'd like to get out of there, and it is. Which Mexico's another good one. There's a lot of really cool rattlesnake species in Mexico that no one has. or very few people have.
Yep.
My pick, though, like at the top of the list, is I guess what is Irian Jaya? So the right side, the East Coast.
No, that would be Papua New Guinea.
West Papua and Papua New Guinea.
So, all right. So Irian Jaya, which we don't use anymore, right, would be the province of West Papua, which is owned by Indonesia, and that's on the west side of the island. The east side of the island is its own country, the country of Papua New Guinea. So you want Papua New Guinea to open up, which I would agree.
I want to. I'll tell you why, though. It's pretty much 100% out of curiosity to see what the green trees look like, what the carpets look like, any of the scrubs. Just obviously, we see a ton of variation, and the cryptic diversity in species of green trees there, and we really don't see or hear a lot of the ones that are on the other side of that border. And so I'd be super interested to see just what things look like over there. They may not look a whole lot different, but it's interesting to think about. But India would probably be number 2. Mexico would easily be number 3. South America, that's a whole nother conversation. Like Brazil,
Brazil and Peru. Geez,
French Guiana, like Billy Jenkins is saying. That's a long list. I don't think anybody could pick just one entirely. Australia, that would be cool. Mostly because I want to see Imbricata other than Scots through the screen on my computer here. And even like the Australian chondros, that would be cool too. Did someone look? You summoned Dom. Someone said Peru.
Sorry, I keep clearing my throat. I got a frog stuck in there.
More inlands too. Look at that. Yeah.
So I just hopped on iNaturalist just to see if the country of Papua New Guinea had any clicks on it. Because shy of a couple of major cities, it is an extremely remote country.
Mm-hmm. I've already looked on there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one picture of a green tree found just slightly like right of center, if I recall, about right of center, give or take, and it was like attached to a stick, and then there was a picture of it dead because some local killed it, and I guess was going to eat it.
Jeez.
And it didn't really look like anything outstandingly different than anything else. So,
how do you? All right, because I never use iNaturalist on a PC, or I always use it on my phone. So how do I search an area of a map?
There's a bar at the top of the page with a little magnifying glass.
Oh yeah. You know what I did? I used the wrong search bar because there's 2 search bars. I used the main one. It was like, what do you want to do? What are you trying to do? Okay.
China would be a cool one too. Isn't China pretty much closed off?
Yeah, but there is Chinese export. A lot of them are actually exported for non-pet reasons, whatever it may be. So, just looking at this now, oh, this is not right. It says that there's Pituophis and Actroctaspis and Thanopsis, which is not correct. So, all right, I got to figure out how to do this later. I should not be doing this while we're live. I was trying to find us green tree pictures from Papua New Guinea, but that boat sailed.
Hen Dog said Indonesian boys get stuff from PNG all the time. It's like, well, I'm not an Indonesian boy.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
American, damn it.
Yeah. We're white. They don't like us.
See, I'll pull it up on iNaturalist because I'm not a boomer. I got this.
Thanks.
But I'm looking up bear rat snakes in Papua New Guinea because that's the default.
Yeah, that's not good. Which, by the way, I'm glad we actually got on this topic because once we show some PNG animals, I want to ask you about making your Baird's database because I have some cogs turning in my mind.
Aurelia, here it is. Yes. Let me Let's see. I think this is the one I was talking about. Listen to some Journey tonight. Whoa. Okay.
I still can't believe that you listen to music while we record our live shows.
I do.
It's just, I have to like be in it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to look on Unnaturalist and I'm already,
I got it right here, bro.
Look at you, bruh.
So here's the one I was talking about. It's not.
That's the only one.
There's a second one now, so I think it got added recently. This one's from July of last year, or submitted. It was actually from 2004, but it's not really. See, I was assuming it was right around here where this little hand is. Thought it was right here. It's actually further east.
Okay.
I mean, it's a pretty big chondro, though. I mean, that's not a small one. And this guy's super happy with his slingshot in hand. Look at that.
Wow. Look at that.
That sucks. But it's interesting because this one it's like a sort of what we would classify as like a Maruki, which has that white band, the white dots, very similar to the Cape York stuff, which kind of makes sense because that's not far off from where the land bridge would have been to Cape York. That's the distance we're talking about right there. And then let me see what the other one was. They have that labeled as a southern green tree, which I don't think would be right. This one isn't new. This is one I saw too. And this one was even farther east. You can see it right here. So there's sort of like off this little, I guess it would be the bird's tail, since the bird's head is the other adjacent corner. But also very Maruki-esque. High yellows with the line. And yeah, so actually, you know what I didn't look up though while we were doing this is look up carpet pythons.
It's good.
Harrisoni, I guess. This thing really does struggle. Wow, there's no popcorn carpets on iNaturalist. What's up with that?
Yeah, there is. I don't think it's. I think it's. It doesn't. They're not doing Harrisoni.
I mean, it comes up.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Really?
Let me just look up carpet python.
Yeah.
And then we'll just look at the dots on the map. Jeff said, I hate seeing dead snakes on iNaturalist. I'd like to see what stuff is coming out of the Pashtun region of Pakistan and Afghanistan. You should look up false palm viper. That's why I brought up French Guiana. Those are very cool. I hate seeing dead snakes anywhere. Would you post pics of a puppy you killed because it was in your yard? No.
Yeah, but see, you can't.
It's different over there.
He's eating it. It's a delicacy. He's excited about it. It's
very
cultural.
Large cultural gap.
Yeah. Yeah. No different than, we would be with, the prized deer that we just harvested,
Billy said my brain couldn't handle listening to music and doing a podcast.
Yeah.
It's not loud. Like I have it turned down a lot. It's just in the background. It's just background noise. Ooh, see, look, we got a dot.
Oh, where's that?
It's right here. I'm trying to zoom in. iNaturalist makes my computer struggle. Oh. There we go. Port Moresby. And it's funny that they look like the Marukis, and the Maruki is literally like all the way across this little
polar opposite
bay area, I guess is what you'd call it.
And yes, Thomas, some of the Central Asian countries do export. Turkmenistan exports a lot of really cool stuff. I'm pretty sure most of the Russian tortoises that are imported all come out of, I think, Turkmenistan. So, wow, that it's like Nova Guinea as hell.
That is Nova Guinea as hell.
Look at that.
From Snakes Are Cool.
Looking good, Billy Ray.
And let's see what the other one looks like. Don't do this to me.
Jeff says, not much for Apodora.
But is that the one I just looked at? I think it is. Yeah. See, this says it's a Darwin carpet. We know that.
Yeah.
It's not likely. That one looks a little more traditional.
Yeah.
It also looks very unhappy.
And that's on the P&G side?
Yeah. That's Port Moresby.
Yeah.
That's
where Port Moresby. That's where Dr. David Williams and his Bavia are at. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What's up, Billy Hunt? Chiming in for the Nova Guineas in the wild.
See about scrubs. I see some dots on that side too.
Billy Hunt's going to have to rewind to see the Nova Guinea.
Yeah, because this thing's such a nightmare.
Well, I opened up mine and it works fine. So I actually pulled up another species. If you
probably because I have music playing and this going on.
Probably. Here, just switch to mine and I'll pull up the scrubs.
Let me see. I got one pulled up here. Ooh, look at that. That one's pretty.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Oh. That front half is almost like a Timor.
And dude, look how thin that palm is. And it's just going straight down that thing. Just hanging on.
All muscle, dude.
It's all muscle. Look at that impressive animal. Oh,
what
awesome.
All right, we'll switch to yours.
So I have an affinity for death adders, right? And one of my favorites is rugosus, which is the rough. It's the keeled one that comes out of New Guinea. So I went on the P&G side just now, and I typed in country Papua New Guinea, so it didn't give me the Indo stuff. Mm-hmm. And there's no rugosus, but I found a lavis that I guess the guy got lucky. Here, show the picture. Whoever took this photo is champion because that is clearly a male courting a female. Like,
oh, yeah.
How lucky is that picture? You know? And it also goes to show so much color variation in that one species alone. Because like I've had red ones, I've had blue ones, I've had, like the blue gray, like the blaugrau.
That female's kind of ugly.
Yeah, that female's like that light olive.
Looks like a water snake.
Yeah. So what did you type in Somalia or what did you type in for?
Yeah, I looked up Somalia and genus, and there was 2 observations on the right side of that chunk of land. There you go.
What? Hold on.
You can do it, Phil.
Yeah, I know. Hold on.
How'd you get yours to have all the water and green stuff? Mine was just
because I'm awesome.
I think that top one was the first one I did.
That one there?
That was, I think that's the one I just did.
Yeah.
Yep.
So where's this one? Wow, that's really interesting. That doesn't even look like...
Zoom out on the map. It looks like Elias more than anything else. Is that the other one? It is.
That's another. Yeah, that's the other one.
Very.
Yeah. Can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's very lesser.
Just 8.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very blank looking too. Interesting. So now, just for shits and giggles, should I do the same thing and try typing in just scrub python, see what comes up?
I mean, go ahead. It's going to be a lot of Australian stuff.
Not if I type in PNG.
Unless you look up Tannenbars.
We could do that.
Dude, I had a hell of a time cleaning his cage yesterday, man.
Because you don't love him enough.
He's a hard one to wrangle. He either takes off or he firmly anchors himself onto whatever is closest.
Oh wow, look at that. That's all the way on New Britain. Wow. Can't tell if that animal is alive.
It's not looking good.
Not looking too hot, right? And then there's this one.
Ooh.
Oh, that's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, that looks a lot like those Highland types.
Yeah.
Much darker. The Oxybil, I think is how you pronounce it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of my favorite localities when it comes to the scrubs there, man. They're so cool looking. I was looking up Pseudacus.
No results.
Isn't that crazy?
And that is very, very crazy. So now let's just do, let me do this because I can search that area. It's what's being shown on the map. No results.
Look up the one Billy was talking about. Look up those king rats.
Hold on. Yeah, it's not in Papua at all. Wow, that's sad. It just goes to show you, man, humans and cane toads.
No, not even. I mean, look, we looked up green trees. There was 2 observations, and we looked up scrubs, and there was 2 observations. Like clearly,
yeah, that's true.
Not exactly a hopping destination.
Yeah, you're right. Good point. Not a lot of Wi-Fi in East Papua. So, all right, and what are we looking for now?
Elafe Carnata Yanaguiniensis. And Brandon said people misname a lot of animals on there. You have to be very broad.
And Elafe Carnata from Papua?
The one with the Y that just popped up. And Henry said, no Pseudacus papuanas have been found in the wild for a few years, not gone but rare. Because if anybody's going to know that, it's going to be hen dog.
Yeah, I know. I knew, and that's kind of why I knew Henry was watching. That's kind of why I wanted to do it.
He's got a pretty good pulse on everything going on over that way.
No results. All right, let's get rid of Papua.
Yeah, well, that's right there.
Where?
On the right side of your screen, bro.
Yeah, oh, you're saying just click this.
I don't know what Billy is looking at in particular. They're in Japan.
That is not in Papua New Guinea. Taiwan.
That's Taiwan. Yeah, I guess Brandon makes a good point. I'm sure there's a lot of listings on there that haven't been identified yet by people because there's probably so many that people just haven't gotten around to actually doing it. So that makes me. I'm gonna look up Baird's.
What is that? Let's back that up.
Oh, good God!
Yeah.
What did I just look at?
All right, where's stop that one?
This graphic.
Yes, it was. Oh, that was a rabbit hole, wasn't it?
Snake, Texas.
No, Billy, it's quite all right. We weren't trying to stay in PNG. I just got confused because I thought that the Carnata did come from that, and that's what you were trying to do. I didn't realize it was Taiwanese, or Formosan, excuse me.
What did you want to talk about with the whole database thingy?
Stolen photos. So I was going to start basically I wanted to get as much locality phenotypic data on wrinkles that I could. And I've noticed that I'm in a couple of groups on Facebook that are, I got a snake in my backyard, please ID it. And there's been a ton of wrinkles lately, and they're all different colors. I posted that one from Gotang, that really light color
video. Yeah.
Yeah. And just like that video honestly sparked my thing. I was like, well, shit, man. I know Justin was doing the iNaturals thing and like cataloging all the birds and where they were found, the local city, time of year, all that stuff. And I kind of want to do the same thing with the wrinkles, but I don't know how to start. And like shy of just making an Excel spreadsheet, I kind of wanted to go further into it. I didn't know if there was like a databasing program.
No. Here, I'll show you. Let me bring it up.
Yeah. Because I know there is like collections, database apps and stuff. I was trying to avoid that. I don't know. I'm trying to find. I don't really think there is something specifically that in my mind what I want to accomplish. I think it's going to be a lot of note taking on my part, basically saying, picture number 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the descriptions in spreadsheet. I have a feeling it's going to be something like that. And maybe I'll just do like a hyperlink to the actual photos and just save them all.
No, it's super easy. So what I did is you can create a Google Drive for free, and it gives you 15 gigabytes of storage up front.
Right.
And so in my main drive, I created a folder called Baird Eye Locales.
Right.
And then I have it broken down by Mexico and Texas, and then unknown localities. And so then I go on iNaturalist. I look up all the Baird's listings. And wherever it says they were found, if they were listed, I put that county.
Okay.
So like Edwards is a big one. And this is 100% for personal use. I'm not posting this anywhere or anything like that. Like I've shared the link with people. And I'm doing this just because I want to be able to look at the different localities and see the difference without having to flip back and forth through iNaturalist. And so then, like if they listed a certain mile marker or something like that, like this is FM 335 north of Vance, Nueces Canyon, Barksdale. So like any of the little counties sort of outside of that main area, Texas 118 near Davis Mountain State Park. This one's really interesting. So I just saved them from iNaturalist and loaded them in this folder. And this is basically literally so I can just go through, look at the different Bairds. I'll show you another one. So if I go back to Texas, and I mean, it's not hard to do, and these pictures aren't like super high res, so they're not going to take up a ton of space. Valverde, which is like Loma Alta's.
Wow, look at that red face.
Yeah.
Look at that. Click that guy.
So this one's between Comstock and Langtree. So sort of that same general area.
Look at those stripes, man.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
And so, like I said, just as a way to do a comparison, at some point, I'd like to sort of somehow compile these into like a little quiz thing I can take, so I can sort of get used to seeing the different localities and being able to see any traits or something that sort of stick out for a particular group.
Yeah.
There is a trend with these where sort of the one side of the distribution has a little more silver, the other side has a little more orange. So like one of the male Bairds I got at the Atlanta show has very coppery eyes like that, and I do notice a little difference in the eye color in some of them. So then if we go to like unknown localities, just where they've obscured that information, which is why I'm so bummed that I have no idea where this one came from, because this is like the coolest Bairds ever.
Wow.
Straight silver. It looks like
now, do you think that might be a result of that sand? Like not it the sand getting on the animal's body and getting in between the scales and just making it look more silver?
I mean that thing looks pretty clean to me.
Yeah.
See if I can zoom in more. I mean it's just odd. Like there's no saddles, there's not even stripes. It's just gray,
Well,
and there's
like
some of the orange in the scale.
you can see this where the stripes almost start, but the stripes themselves are silver. Very cool.
And then
So,
obviously there's not a ton of listings for Mexico, but even then I have that broken down into sort of the areas. So like the Mexican beards, I talked about it. They have that silver head with the distinctly differently colored body. This one's kind of in the middle of changing, but you can see obviously the head is different than the rest of it.
Yeah.
Here's another good example. So just something cool you can do if you got a species with a ton of variation. Like I thought about even doing it with corn snakes, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's just it's cool to be able to look at it and be able to tell what's what. And I think that's kind of the only way you really get good at, like chondro localities and stuff too. Is you look at a lot of them.
Yeah.
And even if it's on like some sort of subconscious level, like I even screenshotted the map here. And it's not like I have any plans to go to this place and try and find any of this. It's just data collection for the sake of data collection, I guess.
It's because you like it. That's the same thing with me. You know what I mean? The snakes are found 8,500 miles from my home. It's not like I'm going to go on a weekend trip and go looking. It's just sheer curiosity, fascination of a species.
And if I was smart, I'd actually do another folder with subox, which I need to do. I just thought of that.
You really should. And it makes us better keepers too. You're seeing all the different habitat, and I look at weather from, like, we always joke about, the show starts off with the weather report, and like, you're getting older, you like the weather. My dad watches the Weather Channel all day because he's 70. Like, we make those jokes, but weather is such a big data thing for herpers. You know what I mean? Aside from going herping in your local area, like I have cities in Africa, in Asia, and Australia, because that's the species that I keep. And I like to know what's going on at that exact moment.
And Steven asked, are we getting any Carpet Fest this year? Southeast, not that I know of, unless someone else is putting one together. I don't know if any of the other ones are happening. I haven't heard any word on it yet. Then Brandon asked, are the Mexican locales in the hobby as much as the U.S. locale in terms of popularity versus price? The Mexicans are typically a little more expensive, but that's because there's not as many of them as the Texas localities. So Jeff said Northwest maybe, as far as Carpet Fest go. So. But the issue with the Mexican stuff, as far as beards go, is like the original founding group was brought in by the San Antonio Zoo, I believe. There was one guy in particular that brought in a couple, and I'm pretty sure any in the U.S. all originate back to that original group, since Mexico exportation is not happening. There's nothing to say that someone brought in illegally and no one knew about them. Who knows? I don't know. It's not impossible. He said population-wise. Yeah, no, they're not as popular. I have an adult pair that were sold to me as Mexicans. They fit the bill phenotypically. And then I have another pair that I got at Daytona last year that are from Ron Allen that are Mexicans. So that's something I'm definitely planning on working with, because, the Mexicans are my favorite out of all of them, honestly. Between those and the Loma Altas, it's just, they're awesome looking snakes.
Just real quick, I forgot I wanted to share this. I have to go back and I have to dig through Facebook and find out where the locality was on this. But if this doesn't say Exanthic, I don't know what does. And it's so difficult.
Ooh.
Right?
Dude, that thing's a freaking beast.
Beast. That is a diesel animal.
Big.
And like you look at it, right? And to me, shy of like this little markings here, that is pretty Exanthic to me. But then when you zoom in on the face, you can't really tell if that's like dirt or blood or something.
Yeah.
But like that coloration would not, like red on the face like that would be very uncommon, but dude, how awesome is that snake?
Well, I mean, I would think that you saw the ones that Pia and Cody had. They had
Right.
one in the main room that was very black and gray. I wonder if that one had.
Yeah, it may
don't know.
just be their locality. Who knows? So we got off track again. What was we were talking about exporting, right?
Yes.
So general consensus: most definitely India, most definitely Israel, most definitely Australia, and possibly some obscure African countries, i.e., Angola.
Mm-hmm.
Angola would be stupendous.
Ethiopia
would be stupendous. Realistically, if you could ever figure out how, if there even is an airport, but like, Western Sahara, Mauritanica, that would be pretty awesome. Tons of desert species out there that no one's ever seen.
Let me see. I'm trying to pull up. So Nipper, our buddy across the pond, tagged me in a couple posts that talked about Heloderma bites. So I was pretty interested to talk about those.
Okay, cool.
I know we've talked about them briefly in the past, that they do happen. They're usually not life-threatening, but they are super painful.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to now find these posts, so bear with me. He tagged me in like 3 of them.
You find that, I'll be right back.
Okay. Here we go. It's case reports. I have one from a Gila, and then there's some from some beaded lizards. And we'll wait for Phil to return. I actually just put my male bears back in with my female. I separated them to feed them, and I put them back. None of my adults have gone into shed cycles yet, so it might be all for nothing at the moment. But all the younger bears, of course, are all shedding at the same time, but none of the adults that are ready to go are. So go figure. Same with corns. The second clutch of Boyga should be hatching on the 25th of March. So we're inside almost inside the last 30 days or so. And then I'll likely end up pairing them again. I'm thinking sometime in June. Those females, or at least my female, seem to bounce back really quick from laying and double clutching. So I have the sneaking suspicion that in the wild, those things probably reproduce like crazy. Current babies are good. I have one that is yet to refuse a meal since day one, which has been pretty nice because I just drop a pinky in there, whether it's frozen thawed or live, and it disappears. The other 2, I've had one that kind of he'll take frozen thawed or it'll take frozen thawed sometimes, kind of like 50-50 if I offer it. Sometimes it takes it, sometimes it doesn't. And then I have one that just flat out just strikes and strikes and strikes and strikes and strikes, but doesn't actually take it. So they'll come around. It's just going to take time. So
I have tramersers like that.
Yeah. So I found one of these is a Heloderma. Not a Heloderma, Helobite. It is a Heloderma. It's just not it's a Hela. So there's this guy that posts in the Venom interviews, and then he has another group entirely that talks about it's a lot of case reports and stuff. The guy's name is Sud Salimian. So this is from a Gila monster. Abstract. A variety of exotic reptiles are kept as quote-unquote pets, and the ownership of these animals is rising in Hong Kong. 2 lizard species are known to be venomous, the Gila monster and the Mexican beaded lizard. Both of them are native to North America, but are traded in the pet markets. Bites from these lizards are capable of causing severe envenomation in humans. A 41-year-old man presented to the emergency department after bitten by his exotic pet. His right hand was bitten by a Gila, resulting in local swelling and intense pain. The local envenomation lasted for about 12 hours and then gradually improved.
Good for him.
Bites by Gila monsters could result in local and systematic envenomation. Local envenomation includes intense pain of the injured site, edema, and paresthesia. Systemic envenomation include hypotension and airway edema occurring in severe envenomations. With the increasing popularity of keeping exotic pets in Hong Kong, envenomation by exotic venomous animals may be encountered by the emergency physicians. Knowledge about the potential envenomation effects of these exotic animals is essential for proper management of the patients.
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of goes without saying, but I'm not a doctor. Let me see
If it's simply for 12 hours, that's a lucky guy.
Here's one from a Mexican beaded lizard.
Are there any photos?
Those on the first one there was one of the hand, but it really wasn't anything special. This one doesn't really have any. This one just has a picture of a beaded. But there was one that does have, I think it's the next one that has a good bit of pictures with it. So this one is a single report of an envenomation by a Mexican beaded lizard. Further anaphylaxis secondary to lizard envenomation has only been reported with the Gila monsters. We report an envenomation that resulted in both systemic toxicity and anaphylaxis. A 40-year-old male was bitten on his hand by a captive Mexican beaded lizard. The patient experienced severe local pain, dizziness, vomiting, and diaphoresis. Upon arrival to the hospital, he was lethargic, vomiting, and in severe pain with marked swelling on his hand, lips, and tongue. His blood pressure was 110/63 with a pulse of 60 beats per minute. The patient's oxygen saturation decreased to 55%, and he required oxygen, although cyanosis was not observed. He was treated with normal saline, diphenhydramine, methylprednisolone, famotidine, morphine.
The morphine, the better.
Ondansetron and hydromorphone. The patient was admitted to intensive care where he continued to complain of severe pain requiring morphine. Local x-ray revealed only soft tissue swelling. Remarkable initial laboratory values included white blood cell count of 18.5. I don't know what that measurement is. With 80% segs, also don't know what that means. Over the next 8 hours, the patient's symptoms gradually improved. He had persistent local swelling at the bite site along with erythematous streaking up the forearm. He had an uneventful hospital course until his eventual discharge the following day. Significant envenomations by members of the Heloderma family are rare. Systemic toxicity usually resolves within 1 or 2 days of supportive care. Prior envenomations may predispose patients to anaphylactic reactions.
Yeah. 12 hours is pretty quick, though. I mean, I know one guy that got hit and by an adult, and he was a short guy, shorter than me, and he got hit by an adult Gila in the palm. It was a mistake. The Gila was going for the rat, and his hand was in the wrong spot. And his lasted about 72 hours, maybe. Then I know another guy, and we believe that this was some kind of, I don't want to say anaphylaxis, but some kind of allergic reaction. He was bitten in the hand. This is a big guy, probably your size, Justin, and he got bit by a baby in the thumb, and his pain lasted like 5 days. So it was something to do with his nervous system, something to do with his immune system did not agree with that venom of a little baby.
There's an interesting case report of a fatal Portuguese man-o-war envenomation, which, from what I understand, those aren't typically fatal, but
I mean, a big enough man-o-war, that'll...
Yeah. That's the Gila bite we already read. Here we go. There's another. This is a Guatemalan beaded lizard. So this is the Heloderma horridum Charles Bogardi. This is an endemic lizard that inhabits southeastern Guatemala. Published reports of bites by beaded lizards are scarce. This is the first case report of a bite from the Charles Bogardi subspecies. A 24-year-old man was bitten on the left hand by a juvenile animal. The lizard remained attached for approximately 15 seconds. The patient experienced severe local pain, dizziness, diaphoresis, vomiting, severe paresthesia in his left hand and arm, and hypotension.
Yep. That's it.
He was treated with intravenous ketorolac, chlor. I'm not even going to pronounce that. Please. All this stuff and normal saline. Hematology test revealed leukocytosis. Symptoms improved, and the patient was discharged from the hospital 24 hours after admission. The case reported here shows that bites by Heloderma produced severe clinical effects shortly after the bite. Management consists of waiting for the lizard to relax its bite pressure and using pliers to open the lizard's mouth and pull out the bitten extremity.
Wow.
A careful manual search for teeth remnants and supportive care. In our case, severe pain unresponsive to non-steroidal anti-inflammatory analgesics was a major problem. Paresthesias resolve quickly, but pain may persist for up to 12 hours after the bite. A full recovery is expected. So let me bring up the pictures. And I'm sorry for butchering all the medical jargon. I'm kind of amazed that I was able to read that as fluidly as I was.
Okay.
So it doesn't look like much.
Yeah, that's about what you expect.
It don't look fun. I know that.
Oh. You could totally tell that guy had his hand above the lizard, and he was probably trying to take a picture or probably just playing around doing this, and it just went and got him.
So let's see. There's one. So he talks about some of these other papers or reports. Says we present a synthesis of clinical and biomedical effects of envenomation by Heloderma based on 22 well-identified cases described in medical literature, 3 life-threatening syndromes may be involved. Angioedema, which can lead to respiratory tract obstruction, significant fluid losses due to diarrhea, vomiting, and sweating associated with hypokalemia, and sometimes metabolic acidosis. It says Heloderma bites are quite rare and generally mild. Which I do wonder if that with that last one, if that thing hung on for 15 seconds. I mean, it's
a long time.
Heloderma strike me as one of those types where the longer you're letting them hold on, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's the other thing, it doesn't matter if you got bit for 1 second or 15 seconds. It's a guaranteed venomation. Like there's no dry bites with the Heloderma.
And it could have been, Brandon said, it looks like it was laying on the forearm, possibly, which if you think about it, is possible. And then actually, while we're talking about Heloderma, Reptile Zoo posted this really crazy video of them extracting venom from either a beaded or a Gila recently, and you saw the teeth on that sucker, man. Like, you don't really see them because there's almost like the same sheath sort of mechanism thing going on with them.
Right.
But when those teeth pop out, dude, it's like, holy smokes. Let me find it. Maybe it was on Kristen's page. Not something I am going to go out of my way to experience.
Yeah, especially with your lizards. They're going to be big.
Unlike some people on YouTube named Peyote Schmiederson.
Yeah, I think that it is literally in the Guinness Book of World Records as the slowest lizard in the world until it needs to be fast. And I think that there are so many techniques to handling Heloderms without just grabbing them from behind the head. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, that's a beaded. So give it a second and you'll see them suckers. Something else people might not realize is the venom glands on Heloderms are actually right here in the bottom jaw. That's why they're so fat.
So now, what is it? Some kind of sponge that they have him biting onto?
It's some sort of rubber contraption. Look at that. Look at them things, man.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Look at those dead eyes. That's the one thing about beadeds and healers that kind of creeps me out a little bit. Is just those little. They're almost like human eyes, but
Oh,
tiny.
Yeah. Hmm.
Kind of give me the willies.
Oh, those teeth are impressive.
They're like big venomous tegus.
I don't know, man. I think
Dumber.
they're way cooler. Just the scalation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Structure and way cooler. It looks almost like some kind of like rubber nipple.
Yeah, like a finger cover or something.
Yeah, like a rubber finger cover, and I'm sure the venom just goes into the cover. And
He's just chomping down.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to get bit by that.
Aggro.
That's totally like the lights are on, but no one's home.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
They just look goofy, man.
Yeah, they do. Jeez.
Here we go. Brad said he's done a few amateur experiments with leather gloves. The longer they hold on, the more venom, which makes sense because every time they bite down, there's that pressure that's sort of,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know.
And you're gonna get some soon.
I got to figure out. So I talked to Reed, and we want to build a cage, but he's a minimum of like an hour and 15 minutes from me, and then I don't know how to build these things. I'm not that savvy, so it's like I need can you buy the materials, and then I'll just pay you back, and then we'll build it together. Like I'll come up there one weekend and there's a logistics hurdle.
Yeah.
So, and then I thought about it, if I haven't been here, I can't really smoke in here unless I get some way to like close off the ventilation and then find some way to get like a smoke eater. You
can smoke in there, dude. It's fine. You doing it?
It makes me weird, man. I'm gonna be that guy that everyone's like, oh, he smokes when there's animals in the same room.
No, you just get one of those. You get one of those bladeless fans, from Sharper Image or whatever. You put the bladeless fan behind you so that we, the podcast people, don't hear the from the fan, and you're fine, dude.
But how freaking dope would it be to have like a big? I mean, me and Reed talked about making a cage the size of this tapestry thing, which is pretty big.
That'd be awesome.
Having that as the background, you see these just giant beadeds just chilling.
It would be awesome. It really would.
And I found someone, actually, one of my buddies, he sells driftwood because I need a big piece of driftwood for the female Jansenite cage. They like to climb, so I want to give her climbing stuff. And he's got some huge pieces. So when that happens, I'm definitely gonna get some of those and find some that I can sort of cross to be able to make it like a platform almost and have like a shelf built in there. But I don't know what wood to use, like what's going to work best. Obviously, particle board I really don't want to use just because it's so heavy. The moment any moisture gets in there and seeps past that seal, it just sponges.
Yeah. Well, see, I mean, crap, man. See if you can get PVC. By the sheet.
Because I was envisioning like just a bigger wood frame, and not necessarily like plywood or anything like that. Because I know you can buy birch now by the sheet and stuff like that. And I don't know. I need to talk to Reed about it more. His work schedule is probably just as chaotic as mine is. So
yeah.
We're gonna work it out, but I'm also not in any hurry. So
I got you.
But what's the best and worst Crotalus, in your opinion? What have you kept as far as rattlesnakes go?
All right, like what have I personally kept? What have I personally kept in my own collection, as well as extensive care of someone else's collection, whether it be working for the wholesaler or mentor or apprenticing under someone. So the first snakes that come to mind in terms of problematic is black-tailed rattlesnakes. I personally feel that the majority of them in the pet trade are wild caught. They're usually super duper stressed. And it doesn't matter how much time you give them to de-stress. They're just always like, oh my God, a human, get away from me, to the point where they don't even rattle. They're just like timid, coward in the corner thing. And I've had very, very bad success with them, to the point where I don't even think about keeping them. Like, I've had friends that did great, you know, they're like, oh man, the Melosis did so good, and blah, blah, blah. And oh man, I fed the Melosis again, and oh, it's such a great one, but they just did really, really bad for me. Just not a good species for Phil. But I'm sorry. Did you want to know what species I think is the worst to keep, or what species I've actually kept?
Both.
Oh, geez. All right. So I've kept, again, going back to my collection and other people's.
I mean, in terms of like working with them and management, like, because I remember I was watching. So last night I was at my parents' house, and the girls were watching Crikey, It's the Irwins, and they were in Arizona, and they were giving little Steve Jr. Wes, the best friend guy,
Yeah,
was teaching him how to tail rattlesnakes in the desert, because
that's a horrible idea.
That's a skill that he needs to learn. And of course, they found a bunch of Atrox.
Yeah, that's a horrible idea.
Like, why? And so that made me think, like, what's like, I remember my Atrox, I wasn't going to tail her.
No. So I have a personal rule that I teach all of my, new people and stuff, is that you don't tail rattlesnakes. I don't care what people say. I don't care what people do. You don't tail rattlesnakes. And if you have to tail a rattlesnake for whatever reason, you don't have two hooks, it won't ride one hook by itself, or you're just not comfortable, however you're moving it, I will not tail a rattlesnake that is under 3.5, 4 foot long. I just won't do it. I'll get two hooks. I'll get, M1 tongs. I'll try and single hook it. I'll use some kind of container to flop them in there if I have to, and drag the container. But I do not tail rattlesnakes that short, because their ability to swing around and go right back to the tip of their tail is so grand. They just do it in the blink of an eye. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to be hypocritical and tell you that I've done it hundreds, if not, countless times. But I feel like there's almost a window of opportunity in which the animal is like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? And then you have that few seconds to do what you have to do. But then at the same time, you don't necessarily want to give them those couple seconds. Mm-hmm. So, like, for me personally, I don't tail rattlesnakes unless I absolutely have to, and it is large enough. You've got a big 6 pushing on 7 foot Eastern Diamondback. Yeah, I've tailed them, absolutely. But I've also had Eastern Diamondbacks where you could not tail it because it would get you. Its strike range was as long as its body, and your 40-inch hook is not long enough to be that close. You just can't, in my personal opinion. And Atrox are the worst, because the minute you touch that raccoon tail, they suck it back in, or they'll jerk back around and strike it. Yeah, I'm not about tailing rattlesnakes. I've done it. I won't lie. I tail my big canebrake. It's 4 foot, but I find that he doesn't ride double hooks well. I'm constantly having to treadmill with him, putting one hook and readjusting, putting one hook and readjusting. But I know that if I just lift up his rear third, place it in my palm, and just use my palm almost as a hook on that last, black tail part, that last bit of third, then he'll ride a hook pretty well. But it's also for 3 seconds, 4 seconds, just literally to get him out of the enclosure into the can so that I can do maintenance. I'm not standing there taking pictures. I'm not keeping the first third on the ground and lifting the tail in the air. Like, it's just not happening. It's literally 3 seconds, 2.5 seconds to remove the animal from the enclosure to do maintenance. And a lot of times with him, once he's in the trash can, he's too wound up for me to get another tail, because now I don't have the space to be able to bring the animal to me. I have to go into the trash can. And that's a whole other concept. So I now have to bring that last third to me, and then hope that he's going to let me bring that third. He's not just going to keep sucking his tail back in. So what I've actually done is I've gently tipped the garbage can over and let him slither out on his own, and then either use the hook like a shepherd's crook and steer him or direct him back into his own enclosure, which is on the bottom, conveniently on the bottom, or I'll then tail him from the floor or double hook him from the floor and place him in his enclosure. So,
because I know Aatrox are popular, Aatrox
Yeah.
are common.
Yeah.
I think we've mentioned it briefly in the past. You know, Aatrox as sort of a gateway into venomous and keeping them, whether that was a good species or not. I want to say you weren't down with Aatrox being.
I am not down with Aatrox being a starter venomous. No way in hell. It's way too volatile of an animal. You know, they're not bad. They're great snakes. They eat great. They poop great. They breed easy. Like they're good, hardy snakes. But their multiple split personalities and extreme defensiveness makes them unwieldy to a novice keeper. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you got to start somewhere. But yeah,
I thought, I mean, I can see that being the case, like where you're coming from with that. My opinion on him with, you know, the 2 years I was keeping mine was like, this thing's going to learn to keep you on your toes. Like you're definitely not paying attention to what you're doing with one of those when it's out of the, you know, I was keeping up with Nia Disha at the time, like doors open, like wake up, you know, because she was spazzy, you know, she wanted to go somewhere. She was going there, just super, like you were saying, super sensitive. You touch any part and it's like twitching and pulling back and jerking, and you know, it just so I think it, you know, unlike maybe like copperheads and stuff that are more likely to kind of just try and take off and not ride a hook, and you know, an Aatrox was kind of like, this is I don't know the words, like it's I think you experience a little more, you have more stressors.
Oh, of course. And to be honest, a lot of people get I don't want to say they get complacent because it's an Aatrox, but in terms of actually using hook manipulation to remove the animal from its enclosure, people get overconfident with Aatrox because Aatrox ride a hook very well in most frequencies. They'll ride a single hook. So you have this snake that's coiled up, it's rattling its tail, it's cocked back, it's giving you a low head posture, it's completely, you know, inverted its tongue, and it's holding its tongue straight out like a gonyosoma. It is in extreme defense mode. And because it's balled up and its body is so tightly wound, you use your single hook and you scoop it up and it just sits there on the hook. And everyone's like, okay, cool, it rides a hook well. Well, no, it doesn't. It's so muscle tense that it happens to ride that hook. And you get in the habit of picking it up and putting it down and picking it up and putting it down. And then one day it's going to know what's going to happen. And it's not going to be this tight, tense, wound coil. It's going to launch off that hook right at you with its heat-sensing, you know, heat-seeking rocket missile face. And you're going to be caught off guard and you're going to go, whoa, what just happened? I can't believe he did that. He never does that. Well, no, he's always wanted to. She's always wanted to. It's just had the right opportunity. So again, not an aggressive animal by any means. Rattlesnakes are not aggressive. They are defensive, just like any other snake. But the fact that they're so tightly wound, pun intended, it's misleading that they ride a hook well. You know, I've had Aatrox that literally will not ride a single hook whatsoever, and I have to use some kind of, you know, I have to flop them into a tub, or I have to use some kind of Pilstroms or M1 tongs or something to gently move them. What I've actually done before is an interesting trick is if you're very comfortable using two hooks properly, and I do mean that properly because there is an actual legitimate technique to double hooking. What I've done is I've used a set of Pilstroms, but not in the sense of grabbing the animal. I've used the Pilstroms to bring the animal to me, to bring the back third to me. The animal's going to, in theory, spin around and face me because now I've grabbed its tail, right? With the Pilstroms. Now it's facing me. Now I can use, because I'm right-handed, I can use my right hook, and I can come in from the right side, and I can scoop the tip of the hook towards the first coil of the animal. So now the tip of the hook is on the inside right of the animal, and the shaft of the hook is on my right or the animal's left, right? And now I'm going to lift that first third. And now I've presented myself a gap between the animal and the bottom of the enclosure, the bottom of the floor. And now I can slide the bottom jaw, the bottom mandible of the pilstrums into that gap and then slide to my left, which would be the snake's right. And now I've essentially brought in a double hook, and I can then lift the animal up with the two hooks. But if the animal starts to pull its tail closer, it starts to advance towards me, I can close down the pilstrums and kind of slow it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's going to give me that extra second or two of slowing it down to lift the animal up, place it in the containment vessel, containment box, whatever, trash can, whatever. And essentially, I was double hooking it, but I didn't give it the option to slide off because using the pilstrums to slow it down, I'm just applying just enough pressure to cause drag where it's going to be like, what the hell is this? You know?
Yeah.
But I know if I grab that animal, it's going to go into full defense mode. It's going to freak out and flop around like a fish out of water. I don't know if that was too convoluted of a story. Sorry.
No, it makes sense. I mean, mine, because I had a, one of the 5-gallon buckets with the gasket lid, the screw-on threaded lid.
Right.
And she would be fine, but the moment she hit the bottom of that bucket, it was now like, and for a while she wasn't long enough to be able to get to the top of that bucket and get out. But one of the last couple times that I'd had to clean that cage, dude, like she hit the bottom and it was like a freaking rocket, and it was like, like I said, it keeps you on your toes. It's like, oh crap, when you have, and it's I've mentioned that previously too with any snake, be it Gonyosoma or the Atrox, if you got a species that's super spazzy and takes off, especially with venomous stuff, like you just let it go. Don't try and not grab it, but try and stop it from hitting the floor or anything like that. Like I learned very quickly with mine too, that when I opened up the cage, took out the hide and she was in there, that as soon as she got touched by anything, she'd just start doing laps around that neodysia. Yeah. And so after 10, 20 seconds, she'd stop and she'd just sit there, and do the rattlesnake thing. And it's just like knowing that's what that snake's going to do. Even that scrub, I know that he's either first, he's going to try and take off, which he moves pretty quick. Actually, it's kind of surprising. And then once he figures out that isn't doing anything, that's when he'll anchor himself on something and he just sits there, like completely essed up, like completely vertical. And it's just like you learn these quirks with different snakes, and you just gotta let them kind of do their thing. Right. If you're keeping venomous, clearly you're gonna have them in a room that they can't escape from.
Right.
But even like the Gonyosoma, they don't hook well at all. They're like the wet noodle thing, they're very awkward and just kind of fall. And and they've gone on the floor a couple times too, and it's like I'm not going to let them disappear into something that I can't get them, but it's like it's not that big of a deal if they're
give them their moment to
they calm them down a little bit, gives them some time to figure it out.
A lot of people don't realize this, but if I told you to walk out your front door, sprint to the end of your block, and sprint back, when you get back to your front door, you're going to be tired, right? You're going to have built up a tremendous amount of lactic acid in your muscles. Well, the same thing happens with these snakes. So you have an Atrox that's in a neodysia, and it's coiled up, it's rattling, and all of a sudden you go to hook it, and you've now provoked it, and its first defense is going to be get the hell out of there. It's going to haul ass. So now it's doing laps, right? It's doing laps. It's spazzing out. It's a fish out of water, and then it goes back to stopping. Well, that's actually a good moment to get in there, because despite it being more agitated and more defensive, it's now built up lactic acid, and now it's exhausted the same way that you are from running down the block. So if providing that it's a good positioning, or the stars have aligned in your favor in terms of removing said animal from the enclosure, that is an opportune time to remove the animal. And a lot of people get hesitant because they're like, oh my God, that thing just freaked out on me. Clearly it's not happy. I should give it time and come back later. And that's a great thought process. I do that all the time myself. I say, yeah, this thing ain't having it. I'm going to come back in an hour. But at the same time, weigh out your pros and cons and gauge the scenario and say, okay, is this an opportune time for me to remove it because it has now exhausted itself temporarily? So There are rattlesnake species that are super chill. I mean, Massasaugas are pretty good. Pygmies are pretty good. Pygmies don't, in my opinion, pygmies don't like to ride hooks. So I always have 2 hooks handy for a pygmy because you can't tail it. It's physically it's too small. You're going to get bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole concept of treadmilling the animal with 2 hooks, you're just going to have to do it, you know? But like some of the larger species like canebrakes and timbers, I equate them very much the same as snouted cobras. Snouted cobras are big, giant puppy dogs until they're not. And, you know, I have a friend who had a banded snouted for 10 years. And that was one of our trainer snakes for class because the thing was 7 foot long. It was as thick around as I don't want to say like, you know, like a tangerine. It was a thick animal, but it rode a hook really well. It would always allow you to tail it. It never hooded up. And then one day it just went bananas, and like psycho snake bananas. And the same thing happens with Horridus. You know, you've got this timber that's super chill. You tail it all the time. And after 4 or 5 years, he says, you know what? I don't feel like you touching my butt today.
I don't like you anymore.
I don't like you anymore. You know, it is not a pretty day outside. It is Monday. And now you, God forbid, something bad happens, you know. I feel like a lot of the crotalid species in North America are easily managed with a single hook. Western Diamondbacks, obviously. Eastern Diamondbacks are a snake unto themselves, in my opinion. They are the largest venomous snake in North America, and they will remind you of that. I've had snakes that were only 4 foot long, but
no fear.
No fear. It knew that it could end me, and it wasn't going to take any chances, and they want to get away, you know. And that goes back to what you were saying. Let them do their thing for a minute, you know, providing it's in safe and escape-proof room and all that stuff. But you know, Eastern Diamondbacks, you know, you see a big 6 foot Eastern, you still don't want to really tail it. I mean, unless it's because of the weight of the animal. You know, you're trying to distribute the weight appropriately. But like, I've seen it where someone had a big giant Eastern and they tailed it, and you heard the vertebrae popping in its back because the weight of the
sheer
body.
weight.
Right. So, like, for example, a lot of people, when they tail rattlesnakes, they usually go with what I would call a high hold, where instead of placing the tail into the palm of your hand and rolling your fingers around it, they almost come up on top. And it's actually a good technique because it allows you to abort and ditch the animal real quick.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
You don't get all caught up.
You don't have to roll your hand out. You're already on top, and you can just abort real quick and let the snake hit the floor. But the problem is you want to have the high hold because now it's going to put the weight distribution on the first third of the animal, and the animal doesn't have the ability to pull itself back as easily. But because of that, if you're not supporting that first third appropriately, now you're causing drag on that vertebrae, and you're going to hear those vertebrae popping. You're essentially breaking their back. So it's kind of a balancing act, but you still would want to have the tail higher than lower to be out of that backup range. You know what I mean?
I've only dealt with an Eastern Diamondback once, and that was probably in like 2007. Somehow my dad had ended up taking one off someone's property. And that wasn't a massive one. It was probably 4 feet if I had to guess. And I mean, its head was freaking huge. And I have yet to find a more like regal, respect demanding species that, like you were saying, at least North American species that was like, it was almost like a freaking tiger, man. Like you see a tiger in the zoo, and it's a complete, like you see them on TV and that's one thing. But you go and see one in a zoo, and it's like, holy crap! Like you then sort of get a better idea of like the power and the ability and so seeing an Eastern Diamondback that one time was just like, holy crap! I mean, it was awesome. You know? And that was just a big snake, man, and it's just commands it. Like it knows. It's kind of like you were saying. I mean, I don't like to anthropomorphize or anything like that, but like it wasn't like the Aatrox where it was like, okay, I've done everything I can to get away, and now I can't. So now it's just going to stay here. This was like, I'm going to be moving sideways while I'm arched up. and then I'm gonna get in the crook of the tree and I'm just gonna sit there and just wait for you to come too close, kind of thing. And it was just, I don't know, it was just majestic.
Oh, 100%, 100%. It's one of the most majestic animals out there. Another thing that I don't want to go too far into this because this is some of the stuff we're going to talk about in the venomous etiquette videos on YouTube. But especially when using two hooks, you have a balancing act, right? You're balancing the animal on two hooks, right? So imagine taking a piece of al dente spaghetti and holding it on two fingers, right? So you want to keep them ideally shoulder width apart, because the wider you have it, the more wide you have these two hook heads, the more droop you're going to get in the middle.
Right.
So we want equal parts. So if you divvied up a snake into thirds, right? You have first third being the head and the main neck, the middle third being the main body section, and the third being from, say, in front of the vent to the tip of the tail. You want the hooks to be at those cuts of the third, right?
Right.
But we also can use those hooks as a rudder to steer the animal in the direction that we want. So in theory, the higher the tail of the animal is, the higher the back third is, the more prone the snake is going to be to go backwards. And it's no different than if I hung you upside down by one leg. You're going to want to roll up and try and fight that one leg that's being dangled. So the higher the tail, the animal's going to go backwards. The lower the tail, the animal is essentially feeling like it's falling and it's going to advance forward. So if the snake's head is on my right side, in theory, I don't have to move my right hook. I only have to move the left. And I'm going to feather that hook up and down to maintain balance. But let's say the snake starts to back up or starts to make a U-turn. I can then bring that left hook down and cause the snake to go forward or to the right. So using the one hook as a rudder in terms of the elevation of the rear third, I can then feather how fast or how slow I want that snake to move, or whether I want that snake to go backwards or to go forwards.
Well, I think the width of that actual hook too. Obviously with a massive Eastern, you're going to use like a python hook with the wide mouth.
Well, see, I would argue that, because to me, that shepherd's crook is, although very useful in distributing the weight, if you have an animal that's extremely uncooperative, that hook's irrelevant. I need something that's lighter and faster and more nimble in theory to direct that animal. So what I've done is, instead of having the beam or the foot of the hook straight up, what I'm going to do, let's imagine that this is, trying to get this on the camera. Okay, so this is my my hook U. This is the foot right here. This is the shaft coming out this way, right?
Yep.
Ideally, I don't want the weight right here. I'm going to shift my hook, and I'm going to distribute the weight along the foot of the hook. And
like
now
the blade.
The blade. Well, we call that the foot, right?
Yeah.
So Chris Woodcock taught me that. So now that I've got the foot pitched at an angle, if this is the snake's body, right, and these are the vertebrae, I don't want the hook directly across. I want the hook at an angle. So now not only am I distributing the weight of those vertebrae or the pressure on those vertebrae, I'm also covering a wider surface area of the animal. The only problem
there's more contact points.
Right, there's more contact points. The only problem is that because I've now changed the pitch of that foot, I'm more apt to have the animal slide off, or I have to make sure that my rudder or my rear hook or my tailing in my hand, that pitch of the third is directed appropriately, because it's going to cause that animal to back up. Because you've now shifted that weight and it has a better platform to stand on, it's going to feel more comfortable. It's going to want to back up because his ass is in the air. So, and this is the balancing act that we play when we deal with two hooks. And obviously,
what do you do with big gaboons?
Big gaboons, I use two hooks, and I personally use two standard size hook heads, and I do what I just said, and I shift it to the side. And if it's a gaboon that's, say, over 5 foot, I'll usually tail it. But unlike the rattlesnake, where I'm going to yoke that tail up real straight, I'm going to keep that tail as flat as possible. And oftentimes, I don't even roll my fingers. I just lay my hand there flat, and it's literally from the vent back. Because if that snake goes to swap around, I can just slide my hand out and I'm good. And again, this is stuff that should not be tried right out of the gate. I am not condoning tailing large gaboons or any gaboons. I'm not condoning tailing rattlesnakes of any kind. But should you have to, this may be a way that you might want to look at it.
How do you feel about the wider hooks? Brandon asked. Like, do you feel like there is a use? Like they do serve a purpose?
Sure, I absolutely feel.
Or do you think that they're kind of like a preference, or not necessarily a necessity, but just a convenience?
I think that the convenience is there. I do not think it's a necessity. I think it is an apt tool to have in your arsenal. I personally don't own one simply because I just never got one. I used to have a big python hook from Midwest that we used to use with retics, and the sole purpose of that hook was to drag the animal to us. You could not lift that animal up on that hook. It was just not possible. Using it in that regard, I think, is great. But the problem is it's so big and clunky that you're not going to be able to articulate a large rattlesnake or a large viper in any real professional way. You're just kind of sloshing them around. The ones that are more of a duckbill, I think, work way better. My only problem is that if you look at the standard, terrestrial heavy-bodied snake mechanics, it is extremely difficult to get that duckbill underneath their body to the point where you're almost keeping the hook shaft completely perpendicular with the floor and raking it, or like using it like a gardening hoe underneath it. And then when I lift up, I still have a pressure point, because depending on how the blade of that shoe or that duckbill is pressured against the animal, it's not equally distributed. As efficiently as if you would have the standard hook size shoe shifted at a different angle, distributing that weight across multiple vertebrae.
Right.
Yeah. Again, this is all my opinion. You know what I mean?
No, it's not. It's fact.
It's fact. And Scott Iper says, if you cannot use two hooks, you should not be keeping venomous. I'm a firm believer in that. I really am. I've double hooked mambas. I've double hooked pygmy rattlesnakes. Like, it's something that you need to do. You need to learn how to use.
Skill that you would rather have and not need than need and not have.
Correct. Everyone's going to tail a snake eventually. Everyone wants to tail a snake because we want to touch it. You know what I mean? It's inherent. We're enamored by these animals. We want to touch it. Certain species, you just don't do it. And if you wait for the time where maybe you have to do a medical checkup and the animal's restrained in a tube, or something in that regard where you're more safe, that you get to actually play and touch. You know what I mean?
I had to tube that freaking tandem board just to get him back in his cage, because so I put him in a temporary tub in one of the racks while I cleaned, and because I have to take everything out and replace the pads. I'm going to switch him to Cypress just to avoid having to do this in the future.
Yeah.
But I'd put him in, how the Rubbermaid and Sterilites have that one clasp in the middle, and then there's that tiny little gap on the hinge. He had gotten his tail like all wrapped up in that, and so I had to tube him and then Rubik's Cube his body out of that little hinge.
Yeah.
And it was just because literally he just sat there. He did that thing that I was talking about. He ran it first, and then when he realized that wasn't doing anything, he's like, okay, this is what we'll do. We'll post up right here on the edge of this tub, and I'll just wait.
Yeah.
And so I use the tubes that I use, and I've talked about it, are the those fluorescent light tubes that you get at Lowe's. I think you use them for transporting fluorescent lights to keep them from getting damaged. I don't exactly know, but they're cheap. You can get them. There's 3 and 4 foot ones. You can get them from Lowe's for $4 a piece. Cut it in half. You have 2 tubes. I do not use them for venomous. I use them for boy if I have to. Just because shed, like my male shed, and anytime any of the boiga shed, I check them, because just like Amazon tree boas, that shed on the tail, on the end of the tail, doesn't come off a lot of the time. So I check just to make sure it comes off, and I usually tube them to do that. And so these tubes are great for that, because they're cheap, they're replaceable, they're easy to clean, and I wouldn't use them for anything medically significant venomous, rattlers or anything like that. But for the purpose of green trees, if I have to check green trees for something, these tubes work great. And for that scrub, after 10 minutes of trying to get him to come off of that tub, I finally just said, screw it. I tubed him, and no more issues. So
yeah.
Brad said, I keep hooks everywhere, including house, shop, garage, and vehicles.
And Scott's saying that him and Ty are playing with, excuse me, different pointed trowels to increase contact points. I think that's brilliant. I think that would, in my personal opinion, that would work really, really well with, excuse me, more long-bodied, more high-speed stuff, and lapid-based stuff.
You're talking about like the 3-fingered.
Yeah, the trowel. Yeah. I think that would work great. My only concern would be using with something that has a little more dexterity and like hanging onto it. You know what I mean? But again, I think that would be great for something like a Cobra or a Brown or a Crate. But using that on like Trip Mercers would probably not be the best idea.
It'd be a nightmare.
Yeah, it'd be a pain in the ass. Scott also says that they more or less never tail Oxyrhinus until they hit 4 foot. Even still, I think I've tailed a 4 foot, taipan, but it was extremely nerve-wracking to the point where I made myself the only guy. I made myself the only guy in the room, and I just was very slow and relaxed and methodical because that's another very volatile species that, they're fine 1 minute and then they see the hair or the dust coming through the light of the window and they just snap. So it all comes down to your personal experience. It comes down to the individual species. It comes down to the individual animal of that species. So, but I would say definitely learn to use 2 hooks. I teach all of my students to start, you get 2 hooks, get 2 different lengths, whether it be a 30 and a 40 or whatever, and start picking stuff up in your house. If you can balance a pillow on 2 hooks, it's a great start. You'd be surprised how many people can't do that. And it comes down to proper hook technique. And again, we're going to cover most of this stuff in the Venomous Etiquette videos on YouTube. Go check it out. But like picking up a TV remote control, can you do it with 1 hook? Can you do it with 2 hooks? Try it. Things like that. Practice at home. Practice makes perfect. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. So
that's Scrub, man. I love that guy, dude. Like in the mornings, he it's funny. I wake up to turn on all the lights and stuff because none of my lights are on automatic timers. I feel that if you don't put them on timers, that forces you to check on things yourself because you have to plug in the lights yourself and turn on the switches and everything like that.
I just leave them in the dark. Fuck them.
And that's Scrub every morning, dude. He's like pushed up against the front right corner.
Yeah.
And his little head will poke up over the edge and just watch me. This little
nice
bug-eyed bastard just sitting there looking at me. And like if I walk in the room, he comes out of his hide and just watches. And then as soon as he realizes he's not getting any food, then he disappears back into the darkness. But
awesome. I love it. What made you think what's that? Well, no, say what you're gonna say.
I'd say he had another BM and it looked worm free. So
good. Excellent. I never noticed any worms. So
he had some worms in the last one, that's for sure.
Did he really? Oof.
That's when I was like, okay, time to get some more Panicure and time to get some syringes. I found out I could buy a Tractor Supply, which was surprising because I didn't think you could get hypodermic needles anywhere.
There's a lot of
shelf.
There's a lot of normal uses for them. You know what I mean? Especially in farmland, or agricultural environments. I was gonna say is you're obviously way more observant of him than I was. He hid a lot. I really didn't play with him a lot.
He lives in his hide, but at night I'll go in and he'll come out. But during the day, like he'll feel that door close because of the cat. I keep the door closed whether I'm in there or not. And his little face is just sitting there staring at me as soon as that door closes. And then it's funny, man. He's a trip.
But yeah, the more I think about the time that I had, because I had him for a little over a year, and the time that you've had with him, I really don't think that he was a captive animal. I think he was just a long-term wild caught, or maybe even not, maybe a short-term. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah, I hit him with 1 dose of Panicure. It wasn't a lot, and I was like Dom had with her chondro, where just worms galore as soon as she dosed it. I was kind of expecting that, but that didn't happen, and so maybe that first dose was enough to knock out a lot of them. I'm going to hit him again just in case, but
yeah. Okay. But what made you think of the Crotalus stuff?
needles go to Amazon. Yeah, Tractor Supply sells them super cheap. You can get the syringes, and then you can get they have different gauge needles, and I think you can get like a 6-pack for $5 or $6. So that's nice to know that I can get them, because I use Safeguard, which is like it's sold as a goat dewormer, but it's fenbendazole. It's the same stuff that Panacure is.
Yeah.
And that's about the extent of what I'll say as far as that goes, because I'm not a vet, and I think you should talk to a vet before you do anything.
I would concur.
But yeah, just watching that show last night made me think about.
Oh, that's right.
They were like really trying to, like, these Aatrox were having none of it, and they were like, he was teaching them. He's like, yeah, you got to be careful, because when you do this, it's gonna like as fast as possible, and you won't even see it happen. And it was like, oh my God, it's like,
yeah.
why can't you just observe it?
Yeah.
Why do you have to tail it?
Because it's on television, bro. They got to make it exciting. They got to add that sound effect. Whack, boom,
And of course, I'm sitting there watching it and like calling bullshit on the whole time. My parents were like, "That was your hero years ago." I was like, "Yeah, but you look at it now, and
it's not the same, man. It's not the same. It's not."
He was reckless.
Look, Steve Irwin, whatever people's opinion of him, there was a lot of reckless stuff, but at the same time, he wasn't doing it recklessly per se. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, think about what you just described. You just described someone teaching a child how to tail a snake that shouldn't be tailed. You know what I mean? There was countless times where, Steve Irwin would have a scorpion on a rock, and he would be rotating this rock, and he would say, it looks like this, it looks like that, but I don't know what this is, so I'm not going to put it in my hand. And like it nowadays, they would just Google it and be like, oh yeah, it looks good. Put it in their hand.
I'm not denying that Steve Irwin did not do a lot for getting kids like me interested in this stuff, or the fact that he did a lot for wildlife in general. He did, absolutely.
Right.
He was like borderline sainthood in that department. Okay.
Yes.
But when it came to venomous stuff, I watch it now and my butthole puckers up real tight.
Well, it's also the running joke is that the reason why Steve Irwin never used a snake hook is because he didn't want to get caught doing it. That's the running joke. Because I guess you get yelled at in Australia if you have a snake hook.
Scott can probably chime in. I'm sure Scott has nothing but wonderful things to say about him.
Yeah.
But like they were like while they were showing him teaching Baby Bob how to tail this Aatrox, they were like going to flashbacks of when he was in Arizona and he was like literally free handling this big Aatrox, like this diesel one, and it was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I don't remember that, man.
Like there was a point where it was on the ground and it was coiled up ready to go, and he was doing the thing where like he had the one knee on the ground, where he was like crouched down, and that thing, I was looking at the distance, dude. I was like, if that thing wanted to go, it could totally reach out and touch you.
Yeah.
I was looking at it like that's no. Yeah.
Well, how about this? I had a friend who does a lot of online content, and they were going out to Arizona to meet up with some people, and the herpers they were with, which is surprising because a lot of the people that live in Arizona that are herpers, they're pretty well savvy on the native venomous stuff. But I guess the people he went with were not. And he called me at like, what was 2 a.m. my time. He's like, hey man, we got these rattlesnakes. I got a snake hook. I want to tail them. Do you think they're long enough? And he sends me this picture of 3, like 2.5, 3 foot Mojaves. And I was like, do not tail that. Like, use 2 hooks, and tell people, if you really want to make it sound scary or dangerous or whatever, tell them, hey, this is a very unpredictable species with a good strike range and a very, very keen ferocity of defense. I'm not going to put my hands on it. And not only did it shock me that him and the herpers didn't know what it was, but he wound up not doing any of the bit, so to speak, because of what I said. And I don't care. I don't care that he missed out on the content, because him and those other people were safer because I told them, don't fuck with it. You know what I mean? Because it's a fucking Mojave and it will light you up. It's literally
Yep.
Western Diamondback on like medical steroids. So,
And I, like the whole needle thing, I was just surprised because I feel like at one point when I worked at Walgreens for a while, like I thought that needles, like hypodermic needles, were regulated. Like you had to have a prescription or something. You couldn't just go and buy them. But I could be wrong. I don't know. I was just surprised that there was like super easy access. You know?
Yeah.
Like if I were someone that was, an opiate addict or something like that, I'd be like, oh, I'll just go to Tractor Supply.
Well, now they know, Justin. Geez.
It was surprising is all. I don't know. Maybe there's something different about that. I don't know. Selfie sticks with your phone is a snake hook with a camera. Scott said, Irwin was reckless. He does get a pass because he is dead.
Okay.
I mean, the whole stingray thing. If I was swimming over a stingray, I wouldn't expect it to do what it did, but I'm also not a stingray person. Scott also added he should not get a pass.
Yeah.
It's different because, I mean, I was a kid when he was the hot thing. I'm sure you weren't far ahead of me.
No, I was a kid, 100%.
Like I had the action figures and stuff, but like I said, I look back on it now, and it's just like, man, like frankly, it's kind of surprising that something didn't happen sooner in terms of venomous stuff.
Yeah. And who knows, man? He could have been hit a bunch of times, and we would never know.
I don't know. I don't like to speak ill of the guy. Like I said, he was a childhood hero.
Right.
It's just over time, your life experiences and views change on things, and you realize that some people, even if they were awesome, just do things that you don't agree with.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. But good rattlesnake species to keep. I would go with any of the Lepidus or Lepidus clawberi. Those are phenomenal species. They're hardy. Once you get them established, I think they're great species. They come from a wide assortment of terrains, so you can have a lot of fun making the viv up. Pygmy rattlesnakes are great as long as they're old enough to really eat something good and solid.
Do they eat cicada like copperheads will?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I told you that one time I found the pygmy. It was hunting beetles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just sitting on the side of the road, and like beetles are just crawling all over the place, and it's just like grabbing a beetle, or striking and missing a beetle, because the beetles are quick. And I want to say that prairie rattlesnakes are good. I don't have a lot of experience with them, but they come in some great looking colors, man.
Mm-hmm.
But they're a good sized rattlesnake that will keep you on your toes, but at the same time not be so big that you would even have to tail it.
I mean, they are, from everything I've seen and read, they seem pretty feisty, like Aatrox levels of neurotic.
Yeah, I would say stay away from, especially if you're just getting into rattlesnakes, stay away from any of the Central and South American stuff. It is not the norm. I personally don't think that Central and South American rattlesnake species are in any personality related to North American stuff. I will also say stay away from the Pacific group. So Northern Pacific, Southern Pacific, black diamonds. I would say stay away from that as your first rattlesnake, because that is another snake species that is way more toxic than people imagine on that Mojave level.
I love those brick red and orange.
Oh, yeah. And way more defensive. Super defensive.
Unicolor. Henry, nobody keeps unicolor, right?
No one keeps unicolor. Yeah, I'm excited. I want to do more with Lepidus. I do. I'm a clawberi freak. I got my clawberi hat on right now. Little Franklin Mountain action. I still got to hit up Kyle and get that female from him.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly just forgot about it with COVID and everything. I'm sure he did too.
I think so. I've been thinking as of late that maybe once my child is older and out of the house, I may get back into venomous, be it native or small arboreal exotic stuff.
Okay.
I think it could be done.
I don't even think that you would have to even wait for her to be out of the house. I think that she is a smart
I would
girl
prefer
for her
to.
age. Right, but I think that she's a smart girl for her age. She's obviously knows what's knows what's what with the animals you have, and she's not going in there playing with the Jansenite when you're not home. You know what I mean?
Because the Jansenite's out playing with her.
Yeah. You just burned yourself, bro. Good job. Good job. But yeah,
I'll be the first one to pipe up and say I'm an idiot.
Yeah. Well, you said it, I didn't. But yeah, I think that when she's older, you evaluate the scenario and go from there. You know what I mean? Get a copperhead when she's 16 in high school and put a lock on the cage and a camera in the room and go from there. And if her first boyfriend sticks his hand in there, it's not your problem.
Or if I stick his hand in there, it's not my problem.
Yeah, right.
Let's test how serious he is about the relationship.
Yeah, you just come out, freaking cane brakes on your shoulders like a Baptist church.
Yeah, hail Satan, brother.
You want to take my daughter out on a date? Let me introduce you to Charlie.
Unicolor are the prettiest, if that's what Henry's saying. I think he's talking about the lips, but the last thing on the agenda, because we didn't get to it last week. What is going to happen when all this COVID stuff is if it ever ends 100%? Like if we get to a point where we can look back and be like, man, remember the chaos that COVID was? Isn't it nice now that we can go out and do whatever we want?
Yeah.
Because I suspect initially shows are going to be big. I'm already hearing Daytona this year is going to be pretty serious as far as vendors, and Tinley hasn't been happening.
Yeah. Well, my prediction is this: shows as a whole, take the bigwigs out of it, take the Pomona out of it, take the Tinley, take the White Plains out of it, like take the big shows out of it. And you have some of your herp shows, Repticon, that kind of stuff. I have a feeling that the individuals that frequented those shows as vendors maybe had their online sales augmented because of COVID and may feel like they possibly may not necessarily need to go to those shows. They can post something on social media saying, hey, we're not attending the show, but we are doing a sale, or, hey, contact us and we can do delivery to the show or whatever. But I have a feeling you're going to see a lot more vendors come out of the woodwork that didn't before. And now they're like, okay, well, the show vendor, attendance is down. Now's a good time for me to get into the show circuit, so to speak, which I think is great. The more the merrier. In terms of the community as a whole, I see a lot more field herpers or attempting to field herp, starting in your backyard.
People that got into it because they were stuck at home and nothing else to do.
Exactly. The more iNaturalist kids, so to speak. And I also feel that we're already seeing it, but vivariums are coming back in a big way, especially now that we have racks that we can make into vivariums. So I really see the captive husbandry blossoming more than it's already at. I feel like right now, the bulb on the flower is just starting to open, and no one really knows if it's going to be a full bloom or if it's just going to be like a partial bud. I really feel like through 2021, I feel like that flower is going to open beautifully, and we're going to have more eclectic and exotic vivaria.
You should be a poet.
Why?
I don't know. That was beautiful.
I'm trying to be a writer for this magazine. It's called Herpetoculture Magazine. Do you read my?
Are you planning on getting said poems out on a regular basis?
I said I'm trying to write. I didn't say I was. I was trying to write.
November. Hey Phil, what am I getting that hook making article? Oh, this issue. End of November. I'm going to do it next issue. December. When am I getting that one?
Pandemic.
That don't stop your fingers from working.
It does, man. I'm exhausted from work. Oh man,
I just kept moving it to the next issue.
I won't lie, there was a couple nights when I was like, do I go herping? Do I write that article?
Dude, I wrote a Boyga article for this next issue, and it took me like 3 days to crank out like 3 pages. Like I was procrastinating like crazy. Like I love writing, but I hate writing at the same time.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's when I'm at work and I'm constantly having to stop and take care of customers and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my job, but it's when you're on a good train of thought and you
of course
stop and then somehow jump back on and then stop and jump back on. It's like, oh my God, I'm just going to sit here and play games on my phone instead.
Exactly. And that's why I don't I couldn't do it at work. I couldn't write like a paragraph here, a paragraph there. I couldn't do it. I wait until the evening time, after dinner, and I put my phone on silent and I just try and cram out whatever I can. But what's funny is right after I went to Woody's, I wrote like a good 3 or 4 paragraphs of like getting into the article just so I could kind of lay the foundation. And of course I had like my notes from being there and I had all the pictures and, I kind of formatted and I made like a game plan of how I wanted to write the article. But Saturday night, I think it was. Yeah, Saturday night, I crammed out like 1,200 words on that. But the problem is that I'm so meticulous. I'm rewriting stuff, and now they have like Apple Speak. So
yeah.
I put it in Apple Speak. I put the headphones in, and like instead of reading it myself, and because in your mind you may read it how you want it to be written, but you left out a conjunction or you left out a punctuation of some kind, and it doesn't sound right. But the speak, reading it to you audibly, you can hear where it doesn't make sense and make your edits. So I've really been enjoying that a lot. But yeah, I mean, I pumped out like 1,200 words that night just because I was like, fuck, I got to get this out. This is going to kill me. So did you read it or no?
I have not read it yet. I literally just started working on design and stuff today. I'm pretty behind.
Did you look at the pictures? Did the pictures come out good or no?
Yeah, pictures are good.
Okay, cool. Are you going to use that one picture as the cover?
No.
Fuck. You're lucky those Boyga are cute.
I've been playing in that article for a while, though.
Yeah.
And like as I was writing it, it's basically the Cliff Notes version of the article is like me getting my cyanea, raising them up, breeding them, how I've dealt with the eggs and the babies. And none of it's meant to be from any position of like authority as far as breeding Boygas. My first clutch. Basically, it was a layout of here's what I did, here's the people that I talked to and what they told me to do.
It's the road to success.
More or less. Like this isn't meant to be a guide necessarily. This is just literally how I'm doing it, which is pretty much how I approach anything when it comes to people asking me for how I do things. It's like you can talk to other people. I advise that you actually do. This is just what's worked for me. This is what I've done. So so I started working on design today. It should be done by the end of the month, no problem. I realized today that this is the short month, so
yeah,
I'm sitting here thinking I had like over a week, and I look and I'm like, oh, I got 6 days. So
you'll get it.
I got like 2 or 3 articles laid out today and done, so I made good headway. As far as like my sort of post-COVID thing, I think obviously it changed a lot with a lot of industries, like people realizing I don't need an office space that I'm paying for when I have employees that are do more from home because they're not, they're getting to work quote unquote an hour early.
Yeah.
Instead of the commute and stuff like that. That's money that people could be using for other stuff other than a lease. But I think shows initially are going to really, really explode. I think it's the same thing too, where maybe people realize they don't necessarily need shows to sell snakes now.
Yeah.
But part of that is also because people were shopping online more. So
yeah,
kind of balances, negates each other. But I do agree. I mean, I think it's people are gonna get into shows more as far as vending. And I don't know. I really think at some point we're going to see virtual shows, and not in the sense of what we've seen in the past, where it's like a handful of people streaming and having animals for sale that they show you. Like I'm talking about literally like VR headsets. You know, at some point I feel like that's going to become a thing. People are literally going to be going to shows from their living room, and you know, you have your little VR headset and you're going from table to table. And I don't know, because the only issue I had with like the virtual shows was, you know, you can look at an animal, but you can't really like look at an animal. You know, you can see it, but you can't really see the fine details of it.
Right.
So I don't know. I think it'll explode, and then I think it'll kind of level off and sort of go back to the way it was. Is sort of how I see it. It would be nice. I think Carpet Fest, when Carpet Fest come back, I think those are going to be way bigger than they were before, mostly just from people missing them. But it'll be nice when everything's sort of back to normal, whenever we get back to that point.
Yeah.
Who knows when that'll be, but
yeah. I agree. I just remembered I have a great picture of a Eastern Diamondback that Matt and Jamie found up by them. One of their bird friends, this one particular rattlesnake kept getting in their chicken coop, and I guess they had corralled the snake into a bucket or a can or a Rubbermaid tub or something. And they basically were like, hey, Matt and Jamie, will you go relocate this somewhere else so that it's not continuing to try and eat our chickens? And I wound up taking the animal out to let it go on the road, like away from the road, and it kept going into the road. So I wound up tailing the snake just so that I could move it to the tree line, because for whatever reason, it wanted to go back on the dirt. So this is actually, in my personal opinion, would be an appropriate size two-tail with an appropriate sized hook.
While doing the splits?
Well, I have to, because now I have to distance myself from the animal. So, and you'll notice how I have the weight distributed fairly appropriately, because I don't want that tail too high where it's going to sag, but at the same time, I'm still letting the animal think that it has the traction on the road to go in the direction it wants to go. And obviously I'm spreading my feet wider. They jokingly call it the Phil Power stance, just because I'm short. That snake is literally taller than I am. So to distance myself more, I spread the feet apart. I'll also make note to never wear a baggy shirt ever again, because I am not that fat.
It's like watching Cody work with the giant mambas. He's not that tall, Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even like those mambas are even longer than, like, taller than me. So I mean, it'd be, especially those like the big blacks and the large westerns and stuff.
Yeah.
Like even for me, that would be tough. So I'm like, mad props to Cody for doing what he does, man. Because that's a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
Then Brandon Valentine asked, do you think it could die down at all, since everybody might go back to normal everyday, like day-to-day life? Which, yeah, but I think there's always, like I was saying, like people are going to realize there's a lot of things that we were doing before that they don't need, like office space, and realizing that people can work remotely and still get stuff done. So I don't know. I mean, there's still going to be things that I think linger from what we learned with being stuck at home and stuff. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, day-to-day life, I think will kind of go back to normal, and maybe attendance will either go back to what it was before or die down a little bit, but who knows?
Yeah.
Weather predictions. As we're predicting.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking it's bedtime.
Yeah, it's about the witching hour.
So, show is brought to you by Puget Sound Pythons. You can see their logo. The camera's reversed right up here. We're both struggling. Find them on Facebook. You can see it in the little the ticker tape down here. Facebook.com/Puget Sound Pythons.
Is that a link? Can I click? No, I
It's
can't.
not a link. No.
Okay.
And then there's a Snakes and Stogies Facebook group.
Yep.
The March raffle will be happening soon. And then I'm going to do a post and see if people would rather do do an order for the Zippo lighters instead of the sampler for the month of March. If people would rather do these, then a sampler. Do like an initial order of those. These things are awesome. So it's got Brothers of the Leaf, Students of the Serpent.
Love it.
In like a army green. So check that out. I guess I'll get a consensus on that within the next day or two. I'll make a post and ask, and I don't know. Like, I haven't done them yet just because, you know, we have the raffle and we have the samplers, and, you know, people spending money on other stuff to say, hey, throw another, you know, 30 or 40 bucks in there to do the lighters. It's kind of a lot to ask. So
yeah,
we'll probably just swap out the sampler for next month and do an order for those and make that happen, and then go back to our normal monthly pack. Or I may just throw a few together, and if people want them, they can buy them. You know, instead of doing like 10, I'll only do 5 or something. I don't know. We'll see. But
sounds good.
Jeff said, "Keep it up. We love sponsoring the show."
Thank you again, guys.
And Jeff is in the next issue of the magazine. He did the book review.
Nice.
On Green Anacondas.
Oh yeah, awesome.
So we will see y'all next week.
Yes.
Episode 113 of THP is happening Thursday. I have no idea who we're having on yet. So
I got some people. We're gonna do some. We're gonna do something.
Word. All right.
Thanks again, guys.
Y'all later.
Good night.